Today we're talking bottled and bond bourbon from the state of Missouri. How's this going to shake out? Only one way to find out. Let's do this. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. So like I said in the intro, we're talking bottled and bond, a bourbon from the state of Missouri, specifically Ben Holladay Bottled and Bond Straight Bourbon Whiskey. So what does this have to offer? So this bourbon's coming in at 100 proof or 50% ABV. This was distilled in the spring of 2022 release. MASHBILL on this one is coming in at 73% corn, 15% rye, 12% malted barley. It is actually aged 6 years, so it has met or exceeded the age statement on this of a minimum of 4 years being a bottled and bond, and does come in at right around that $60 price point. So let's quickly take a look at the color and we'll kind of dive into the review. So as you can see, kind of typical bourbon kind of color, that light medium kind of copper. Move the whiskey around in the glass a little bit. Decent oils. I wouldn't say it's overly viscous so far or oily on the glass. Let's go ahead and dive into the nose. So right away you get a bit of this kind of like dusty corn presence to it. Or maybe even like a kind of a cornbread, so a little bit more of the kind of corn grain. Light butterscotch notes. I'll say you start getting some of those like light, like dark fruits, kind of some like maybe a light strawberry, light raspberry, something like that. Actually, maybe it's more of like a stone fruit. Really nice spice aspect to it. Nice medium cinnamon on that. Yeah, the rye spice I think is pretty nice on this. It's becoming, as it kind of sits and opens up a little bit, you're definitely starting to get a little bit more of that rye influence. So a really nice kind of vanilla note to it as well. Also, maybe even a light kind of chocolate, maybe espresso type of note on that. But I'll say the one kind of predominant thing is you're getting a little bit of like this dusty corn, like nice butterscotch notes. Again, more of the fruit kind of coming out on the nose. Let's go ahead and dive into the palate. Cheers. Wow, so my first thought is immediately from that middle of the road kind of bourbon. It's a really nice, easy sipping bourbon. Like early on for me, you're kind of hit again with those classic bourbon notes, like the nose, a little bit of that kind of dusty cornbread kind of does carry over. Quickly gets kind of fairly sweet. Maybe some of those like nice kind of like fresh caramel notes. A little bit of brown sugar kind of starts to come out. I would say this is a very like classic standard type of bourbon. But again, we're talking about a bourbon or a kind of a craft distiller out of the state of Missouri. And I think for what it is they're doing, the age on this at right around that 6-year mark, for me, I think it's a great little bourbon. Easy sipping, kind of those typical or tried and true, you know, bourbon notes. You got some of the caramels, the vanillas. I do like the dusty cornbread, maybe a light kind of chocolate notes on this as well. In addition, something I was getting different now on the palate versus the nose, I'm getting a little bit more of like a green apple caramel kind of combo mixed with that kind of medium oak. So it's interesting, different. I still like how the dusty cornbread is kind of interacting with this. It's making this stand out and be a little bit more unique, maybe to the state of like Missouri, something a little bit different that doesn't have the flavor profile of like a Kentucky whiskey or like an MGP, something along those lines. I'm really pleased as to how this is really kind of developing, how it's sitting on the palate, medium long kind of finish for, again, 100 proof bourbon. It's hitting a lot of those marks that I think a lot of people are really looking for in a 100 proof bottled and bond type of bourbon. Like I mentioned before, you know, there's that medium oak. It's not overpowering, mixes or blends really well with the kind of sweet notes that are there. Very, very approachable is what kind of comes to mind when I would describe this bourbon. If someone asked me to kind of describe this, I would first say very approachable, enjoyable, kind of tried and true, a lot of those typical or standard type of bourbon notes, but very, very enjoyable to sip on. I think as you kind of transition over to the palate, I guess going back a little bit more, I would probably classify this as a medium type of finish. But overall, again, like I mentioned before, very, very approachable, nice sweet kind of notes up front, maybe some of those like lingering dark fruits kind of on the back end, but you know, again, up front, sweeter. You got some of the cornbread, dusty corn, caramels. Again, maybe like even a little bit of like a caramel apple note to it. So I think overall, it's a really nice bourbon, and what Ben Holladay and the distillery has done with this. And again, they're going to release different variations of this, where they're kind of pulling different bourbons from particular sections of the warehouse, whether they're high, low. So you may ultimately get, based on the different releases, a slightly different kind of profile. So really interested to kind of follow along as to what it is they're doing. But I think for what this bourbon is specifically, I think a lot of people overall are going to enjoy it. I mean, I would say to anyone who saw this and asked me about it, again, I would say, again, very approachable, easy sipping. I think it's what a lot of people that are maybe either new or kind of just getting into bourbon would really, really appreciate. So there you go, guys. If Ben Holladay bourbon is something that you've had, make sure you leave a comment below. I would love to hear your feedback on, you know, your thoughts on this. Always interested to kind of hear, you know, your thoughts on these particular bourbons that we're doing reviews of. So with that being said, guys, if you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out the link in the description below. All the details will be provided there. Go check it out, come back, leave a description. Remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.